What's up, everybody? This is Donnie. Thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate all of you guys. And today I wanted to talk about the biggest mistake that I think most carries make in pubs. And I would probably cut this off around maybe like the 5K range, because I think at 5K and above it gets better. But definitely I have seen this at all levels of the game, at least up until there. And so I think that this is something that can apply to the majority of the Dota population and be very useful as just an idea to keep in your mind while you're playing the game. And let's just get right into it. The biggest mistake that most carries make is that they itemize too greedy. They are too greedy in their item choices, and I wanted to dissect those item choices and talk about them and why you should itemize on the safe side in 99% of situations as a carry. Now, when we pick carry, for most of us, we pick it because we think it's the most fun role in the game. You get to hit creeps a lot, you get to get a lot of items, you get to kill people at the end of the game, and a lot of the responsibility for actually ending the game falls on your shoulders. And a lot of us like to have that control in a game of Dota because we're investing so much time and we want to be able to control that time that we have invested in this game. Let's focus on that kills thing because I think this is the crux of the matter. This is the most important point. Most carries that I see itemize in a way that is too damage oriented. And I wanted to kind of step off from this topic for a second to kind of talk about a more general thing, which is item classifications. I would say that there's basically 3 classifications of items, and those are offensive, defensive, and utility. And the vast majority of carries tend to pull most of their items from that offensive category. And I think that this is a mistake, and I'm going to explain why I think that is a mistake. And in the background, you can see here that we are playing a game of Spectre. And I wanted to highlight this game because this is one of those games where at the end I felt like I had itemized 100% perfectly to win this game. You can see that I was laning here against a Darkseer and Spirit Breaker combo as a Spectre. Remember, Spectre is basically the worst laning hero in the game. And Spirit Breaker Darkseer is a pretty dirty combo for any melee carry to deal with, much less a Spectre. So I wanted to pick this game because I think it is a very good example of how you can change your itemization to actually win you the game without going for damage. Because I think that damage is overused. I believe that more players need to integrate more defensive and utility items into their builds because I think it makes your hero better overall in more situations. And so we're going to look at this game as we talk about this scenario and this topic because I think it is super relevant to what we're talking about. So the first thing that you need to know as a carry is what exactly your role entails. And this is fairly straightforward. I mean, your role is to carry the game, quote unquote. But how do you do that? You do that by dying a very small amount of times, accumulating a large amount of items, and eventually scaling your hero to a point where it can basically win fights alone with minimal support. And usually as a carry, what that means is your hero already has a very high potential for damage. It usually has a good way of sort of locking onto or immediately killing another hero so that you have a fight advantage in terms of numbers. And it usually has a good deal of survivability in the late game. And these are all very important points to note. Because you'll notice that I basically just described the perfect hero in Dota 2. However, there's one thing missing from this equation, and that is survival in the early to mid game. A carry needs to be able to survive the early to mid game to accumulate the farm to hit that critical mass where they do have these qualities of being able to kill heroes at will, push buildings, and end the game. So this is the area where most people make the big mistake. If you add some early tankiness to this ability to carry the game in the late game, you basically create the perfect hero. Remember, items are in the game to fill gaps in a hero's skill set. That is why items exist in Dota 2. They allow you to build your hero to fit the game at hand and situationally solve issues that you might have otherwise. So let's just get into this laning stage and I'll kind of describe my itemization choices and why I think that it's okay to not build damage on carry heroes until absolutely necessary. And I guess one thing that I do want to mention before we do this is that I'm talking about from a pub perspective. I want you to forget everything you know about Dota 2 that you've watched the pros do, because that game is very, very different from your normal pub experience. And so I'm not trying to speak from the perspective of a pro player. I'm just trying to talk about what you can do to win more games in your pubs. So you can see here that I'm playing Spectre against a Spirit Breaker Darkseer lane. Obviously, Spirit Breaker with an Ion Shell plus Darkseer constantly pressuring the waves is pretty rough for a melee hero to deal with, which is why I have 2 sets of tangos and a health potion and the passive regeneration from a mango. I think that this is the only way to approach hard lanes, and why most of the guys that we have in game have a huge amount of regen suggested as starting items. I simply don't think that most pub players buy enough regen, and at the end of the day, you can never have too much regen in the game of Dota 2. So the thing that I want to focus on here in this laning stage is kind of just to stay as healthy as possible. I'm going to try and get denies, but I don't want to take needless harass from the Ion Shells. And again, you see my next item purchase is a Ring of Health. And I get the Ring of Health ferried out to me because there's just no way for me to get to the secret shop because I'm constantly having the waves pushed under my tower. So I ferry out a Ring of Health as the first item that I bring out to me before anything else because I'm running low on regen. Basically, just having the Ring of Health is going to allow me to stay out of kill threshold, which is where I want to pretty much live for this entire laning stage. And you can see that I've queued up a Hood of Defiance as my very first item. Again, this gives me magic resistance, and it's not only good against the Ion Shell, but Spirit Breaker's bash damage is magical, and Vacuum is also magical damage. So it's really the most value that I could possibly get as a first item. And even if I do have to jungle a bit, I will have enough HP regen to continue jungling for a while without having to go back to base and heal. So I complete my Hood of Defiance. Now I have a good deal of survivability against the Darkseer and the Spirit Breaker combo. Also, just to note, we have a Shadow Fiend, which is heavy magic damage in the game, and a Pvgna, which is also heavy magic damage in the game. So really, getting a Hood is the best survivability item that you can get in the early game. One of the other things that we talked about with carries is that usually carries have the ability to kill heroes very well. That's part of what is sort of a requirement of being a carry hero. And you'll see that I pinged Haunt because once you get your killing ability on your carry, you usually want to look to use that as soon as possible. So Spectre has the ability to instantly teleport onto any hero anywhere on the map and perfectly reveal positioning of all of the heroes on the map for 5 seconds at level 1. That allows me to basically pick the perfect fight, and that's what you want to do as a carry. Now, a lot of people on Spectre would probably be looking to go maybe Treads, Aquila into Radiance. Even when you get your Radiance, you're not going to be that strong because you have no survivability items. All you have is damage. Aquila's damage, Treads is damage, Radiance is damage. In this game, where you have the enemy team full of early fighting heroes, Spirit Breaker, Pvgna, Shadow Fiend, Ursa, I don't have the luxury of getting a Radiance early. Maybe I can get a Radiance much later in the game, but if I were to go for a Radiance right now, I would be losing my team the game. I'm going to get pressured. My team is going to get pressured. We have an Axe who needs a Blink Dagger to be useful, which means that we are definitely going to get pressured by this heavy pick-off, heavy early game aggression style the enemy team has, which leads me to believe that going for a Radiance is not in the cards for me, and that is why I go Hood and why I will build items around that needing to fight in the early and mid game. So you can see I helped get a kill on the Shadow Fiend pretty much as soon as Han is off cooldown. So we're going to watch this gank on me because, as you will see, I do die. Darkseer has a level 4 Ion Shell. Spirit Breaker has his ultimate. But you can see that they burned a Spirit Breaker Nether Strike and Charge. They had Ion Shell and Vacuum on me. And I had absolutely no way to escape because I had no mana. But it took them a long time to kill me. And that led me to sort of believe that the build that I'm going for is correct. Normally, Spectre feels like paper until the later stages of the game. And if you feel like you're pretty darn tanky at 12 minutes when you're getting ganked by some heroes that own melee heroes, then you feel pretty good about yourself. If you want to fight early, you want high movement speed because it synergizes very well with your dagger, and you're a hero with no lockdown, so you need to be super fast to actually do damage in fights. So I'm going for drums, I'm going for phase boots, and then I have my survivability item, so it's okay for me to run into the middle of things without instantly dying, which is what a Spectre normally would do if you were to go for, just like a straight Trez Aquila into Radiance build. I still seem to be doing enough damage, and that's a key point. My hero, with a max Desolate, I'm doing 50 damage extra pure per hit to any hero that I hit. Plus, when I haunt, I'm doing damage to everybody, so my overall global output of damage is pretty high for a level 13 carry with no damage items. Keep that in mind. Obviously, Ursa wants to take Roche around this time, so being able to fight around the Roche pit is pretty nice. I haunt in. They do get the Roche, but we're contesting them. We're stopping the snowball by killing the Aegis immediately. I don't really feel in danger in these fights as long as I'm not, 1v5ing them, because I have quite a bit of health. I've got quite a bit of survivability. And so my next item is a Yasha because I feel like I want even more. I just want to double down on my ability to move around in fights. I also want to be able to farm faster. It also obviously just boosts my damage overall. So Yasha is such a good item on Spectre, and I think you should probably get some Yasha item in most games. I'm going to be as aggressive as possible when I do have Haunt because it is my one power spike until the later stages of the game. So every time you have a power spike as a carry, you want to try and do something with that. If you're a Faceless Void and you have Chronosphere up, and if you're a Juggernaut and you have Omni Slash, you really want to take advantage of these small power spikes because they allow you to do something and contribute something to the game before you have all of your items. Maybe it doesn't even get to the late stages, and then all of your farming doesn't mean anything. And that's really the point I wanted to get to ultimately in this video, is that it doesn't matter if you have 7,000 damage right click. If you're dead, you do no damage. Say that again. If you're dead, you have 0 impact. Doesn't matter how much damage you do. And that's why I think that most people should buy defensive items on carries until you feel safe enough to actually play the game. And you can see at this point in the game, we're 45 minutes in. We have a pretty big lead. I'm still going for utility items. I went for an Abyssal Blade and a Nullifier. Abyssal Blade super good against Ursa, super good against Pvgna, super good against Shadow Fiend. Nullifier, very good against Pvgna, very good against Ursa, very good against Darkseer. And at this point, I'd pretty much decided that this was not a good Radiance game. If I run into a Darkseer wall, which I probably will, being a melee hero, I'm giving the other team a lot of free damage that I don't need to give them. I'm already fighting well with the items that I'm buying, and giving the other team free damage when I don't need to seems like a pretty terrible idea. And then another thing to note is that these items that I'm building are still tanking me up. I'm not buying these items because I want to do a lot of damage. I'm buying them because they give me the ability to fight on my terms. And that is what I want to impart to you. If you are a glass cannon, it is very hard to fight on your terms until you are extremely farmed. And the state of the game today is not one that allows you to get super farmed freely. Because people want to fight. They get into a game of Dota and they want to fight. So you better be ready to fight at pretty much every single second of the game. In a pub, if you're not ready to fight, you're probably losing the game. So that's pretty much it, guys. This specific example demonstrates building a very tanky, early game fight-oriented build on Spectre that then transitions into a mid and late game fighting build on Spectre. I'm not super concerned about the fact that I don't have a Radiance, because guess what? If I figure out a way to outfight a team that is built to fight me, then I win the game. 100% of the time. I don't need to out-farm them if I can out-fight them. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope this helps you evolve your carry, transform your game a little bit. I hope it wins you some MMR. We'll see you next time. GG. Have fun.